Welcome to episode 16, I think it is.
100.
1600 of Made in the 80s.
Like, yeah.
Make sure your volume is down. All right. Of Made in the 80s. I'm your host, J-Boy, Graded 80s Kid, here with Thomas Nardini, Seal VHS, amongst other things. So let's just get right to the news. I talked to my buddies. Interesting podcasting information and other stuff. We'll touch on a bunch of other things, obviously, with the market and whatnot. But my buddy's up to 1 million downloads a month on his podcast.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, 1 million downloads a month.
Try 12
something.
where we're at, okay?
So, yeah, 12 million?
And keep going. No, just 12.
He's down to 1 million. He's up to. So his recommendation was that we roll with this for a little while longer, then we'll convert it over, use the same platform, and we'll convert everything over. So those of you that tune into us for Made in the 80s, we hope you can stay around and enjoy our new endeavor. Something about the Mount Rushmore of things. We haven't fully locked that completely in yet, but we're happy to take some opinions and
suggestions for topics.
Yeah. No, not just for top, but he loved the idea of we'll make a big barrel of hundreds of topics of categories, and then we just pull one out and rip it off and go organically, which I think shows a lot of
no verification, no documentation or looking up anything. This has to be purely out of your ass.
Out of your ass. That's the name. That should be the name of it.
Out of your ass podcast.
Out of your ass podcast. I like that.
I think we'll have a lot of followers at first.
Yeah. Well, and we might not get the followers we're looking for either.
No,
yeah.
That's my point. Yeah.
Yeah. The out of your
I'm
ass
sorry. I was looking
podcast.
for the in your ass podcast.
Dude, that's actually really funny though. It rolls off the tongue well. Out of your ass podcast. It literally rhymes. Yeah. I don't know if people would really know exactly what we're going for, but yeah.
How could you?
So yeah, take some suggestions. See who can. Let's see what we got here. Garage sales with a GoPro, like all the other cool kids. They'll feel weird and not organic when I do it. Yeah. Of course, that's one of the tricks to this, and it's you and I'm sure as actors, it's a skill. You have to learn when to talk, when to shut up. When, how to make things feel natural. I remember I think it was like episode 10 or 11 where everything just clicked and it was just so good.
We had like 8 or 9 minutes of really good podcast in these 16 episodes far. But man, that 8 or 9 minutes, that's like all my hundreds and thousands of auditions over the years. I can remember about 2 that went really well. Yeah.
And both times, you didn't get those. Yeah.
No, I did not. Both times it was rehearsal. Just try one. One. We're not going to roll. Yeah. And then you try and recapture what you just did with every scene partner, and you're like, it's horrible. It becomes awkward and embarrassing, and they're like, "Hey, that was great."
Well, it's always great to find like a casting director who used to be an actor and really understands how absolutely shitty the experience of auditioning is. That's one of the things that's been good about virtual is you've been able to at least get those really awkward, terrible first auditions just submitted on your own accord at home.
I was talking to a young actor the other day, sort of in the family. I won't name any names, but so she's very early on in her career. And I was like, yeah, you have it easy. Back in my day, we had to like go to all these auditions, drive to them, find parking, deal with all that on the way there while you're trying to memorize these lines and shit. And then get there and then wait and then see all the other people waiting and like you hate them and they hate you, but you're acting nice. And what'd you work on? Yeah. And then, or you SAG? No, sorry.
Yeah.
That's cute. One day.
Like that matters. Yeah.
Yeah. Like anyway. So I'm like, we actually had to go in the room and it's so awkward. You have 3 people sitting there staring at you, giving the worst direction possible, no feedback, the worst cold read. And on camera, and it's just terrible. And I'm like, and then you guys get to just self-tape. This is amazing. You have complete control.
Yep.
And, if you don't like the take, you do it over. You can watch what you did and make adjustments. And she's just like, real actors are in the moment and do it in the room. I'm like, yeah, okay, honey. Talk to me after 5 years and 1,000 auditions and booking one
out of 100.
Yeah.
1 out of 100.
Have fun.
At best, 1 out of 100.
Such an advantage to be able to self-tape.
Yeah, big time. Huge. Because a lot of times they'll still call in, second, third auditions, final auditions, but that first one is always the worst one anyway. And then they're ripping through people. So like, oh, just do your part.
Dude,
We're not even going to read the other.
You just invented an audition podcast. First one's the worst one podcast.
Yes, dude, we're ripping them off today.
Just crushing.
First one's the worst.
You got a comment.
Why is it that every actor wants to be a musician and every musician wants to be an actor? I mean, there's no lie in that. I mean, there's a lot. I've
seen
we've talked about this before, dude. I was an athlete. I was an actor. I was all kinds of different things. If I could have picked one thing, I would have wanted to be a rock star.
Yeah. So if I'm getting real kind of nerdy, what I think is there's similarities, right, between musician and actor. You're on stage, you're entertaining, but there's also rhythm with each one. Like we've talked about rhythm and acting too, and even auditions. Like that takes for God's sakes. What are we talking about? We had a meeting.
Yes.
The rhythm. Finding the rhythm instead of just overacting. Like find the rhythm of a scene or your lines. And I don't know if that makes sense to anyone who hasn't done it, but
yep. No, for sure.
Sorry, cut out for a second.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, you're welcome.
No, the rhythm of it, 100%. I mean, 100%, dude. It is funny though that all these actors now want to become musicians, and the other way around. I think it's kind of always been a lot of that, right?
Well, going for what? Al Jolson, the jazz singer.
Man, that's going way back.
It's going way back.
Yeah.
The first blackface.
Yeah, I'm like, isn't that a blackface VHS tape? Oh, yes, it is.
And then, then we had to wait 50 years for old C. Thomas Howell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In Soul Man, right?
Soul Man, yeah.
Boy, that wasn't career crushing.
No, I mean now that they're all dead, you're all canceled. But
well, I mean, what did he do after that? Nothing.
Yeah.
And he was like an 80s. He had a good little run there.
Yeah. Nothing.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Dude,
so you wanted to talk today about blackface and auditions?
Blackface and auditions, yeah. No, I was going to say we could also talk a little bit about tonight's VHS auction. We kind of talked about it previously, but I mean, it's been an interesting ride with VHS. We'll just say it how it is. It's the market is the bottom is totally fallen out of it in a lot of ways. I mean, there's still a market, but it's not like, I mean, in some ways it's maybe what it should have been, the way that it should have grown, the way that it seems like music stuff is growing, where, yeah, you have your few tapes that are some thousands or $10,000, and then everything's in that like $200, $300, $400, $500 range, of anything significant, whereas at the beginning, everyone thought everything was going to be $10,000, and they were in essence, and I mean, we talked about this the other day. God bless them, God rest them. Mikey, everybody fighting over stuff to sell it to Mikey was not helpful for the market. I mean, it just wasn't. I mean, everyone was at each other's throats trying to get that stuff to then sell
it helped in the beginning.
Yeah, it got all the excitement going.
There.
Yeah, it was absolute insanity. I mean, I've never seen a market like that. I mean, people were ruthless too, nasty, bro, nasty.
And then as soon as Mikey stopped buying, all of a sudden, in an auction sense, it still went up for a little while there. But as far as like the eBay market, it started.
For sure. Well, because you didn't have a whole bunch of people trying to buy to sell to one guy who was paying, 5 and 10x what pretty much anybody else was going to pay. I mean, there were a few other decent buyers, and there were actually a few like kind of strangely ambiguous old school buyers who maybe had already been looking for things that really knew early on what stuff was rare. I remember getting some messages that were kind of interesting, but and the other thing too is it's also like a timing thing. It coincided with the downturn of collectible market in general, even though we still continue to see some records being set in sports things and magic cards and certain memorabilia and whatever, but all the tops, even top video games and whatever, that's all stayed. The top VHS, all of it has kind of come down, but the timing of the market was poor, just unlucky from that sense, I think. And then two, you got a couple of the bigger auction houses get involved. I think, Mikey called me after the first auction, which certainly the first VHS auction at Heritage went really well,
There was so much hype for it at the time.
Yeah, so much hype and everything behind it. And then even the second one, I can't remember if he called me. I think he called me after the first one. We talked for a while. And I don't understand why they haven't implemented this. And certainly even in other things, it's not just, exclusive to VHS, but like why, especially with VHS being a new thing or anything else now that comes along that's a new thing. Like if you want to have a live auction portion, which with a guy, spewing stuff off up there, limit it to 40 tapes, 30, 40, 50 items. Start with the big hitters. All this alphabetical order, 400 tape nonsense. Send that to the automated system either after or the next day. Why do you have hundreds of and that was why I recommended to him at that time. And he was like, no, yeah. I said, yeah, just there's too many tapes, dude. Just if you're gonna have a bunch of tapes, put them in a second auction the next day or 2 hours later that run on that automated system.
Well, yeah. For the first one, it should have been more marquee items, way less items, way less time. I mean, that thing was like what, 4 hours or something like that.
Oh, it was
no one's gonna
4.5 hours. I think it was 4.5 hours.
Wait, even with all the hype and excitement, way too long. So yeah, have it be like an hour, of just the marquee stuff. And then like you said, the next day, then have the next tier stuff. And then people feel like, oh, if I come day 2, maybe I can get a deal and get some snags. And
which you can. Yeah. I mean,
which
you can even do that with video games now.
Kept the excitement going. And then every subsequent auction since has also been a marathon. It just kills it. It's too much.
Well, it'll be interesting to see tonight what happens. There's a couple marquee tapes. There's a Goonies and a Halloween and a Superman clamshell, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, there's a Rambo and I mean there's some decent stuff. I mean, really though, a lot of the late 70s, early 80s stuff is really rare. I mean, it still is. It just is. It's just really rare, and I think honestly, it's still relative though, because we've been talking a lot about music stuff recently, and dude, like just take cassettes, for example. Late 60s and 70s cassettes are even more rare than the VHS stuff. I mean, that shit is almost non-existent. There's a nice filler, big market of 80s and 90s tapes.
There's also a reason for that, timeline-wise. At that time, 60s, 70s, cassettes, that was the small production of, vinyl, and even 8-tracks then were bigger. So the production numbers of cassettes were far lower. It wasn't popular. Whereas as a corollary, VHS, when it came out, that was the thing. That was the home video. Yeah. So it's just... Yeah,
that cassette stuff does not exist, bro. Does not exist. And there's other things, different eras of LP. And that's one thing I was going to talk about with something today, is getting the period correct piece of what was the most popular for that. Like it's like, oh, I have a Pink Floyd cassette. It's an early 80s release. Well, that album was released in what, 70 or 1 or 4 or something. Like it's not, you want the LP, the 8-track, you want something that's period correct.
So yeah, to simplify your point, you want the whatever the format is of the original release when it released.
Yeah, like of what was most popular.
Because the only way I can see where it doesn't come into play, or where there'd be two things, are kind of like early to mid 90s cassette and CD, right? There's that period there where 90 to maybe 95, both were, maybe 92 or 3 to 95, both were just equally as used and popular. And then the second half of that decade, it became largely CDs.
I mean, I think it goes back earlier. Long box CDs came out in 1984, so you got to figure CDs, cassettes were kind of
true. But what I'm saying is more people had and were using cassettes than CDs when those came out.
Oh, then, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I would say, I mean, you have to look at the numbers, but just from a feeling, I would think, there would be a period of maybe a year or two where it was very similar in how much was getting purchased, maybe based on title or something, one particular title or another. But yeah, and that goes all the way back. It was interesting. The other day I sent something. I think I sent it to you too, but I sent it to Zach, who's, my buddy. You don't know him, but you guys have, I think, talked. And he's a younger cat. He, I think he's about 21, and we talk all the time. And I sent him Led Zeppelin reel to reel, Led Zeppelin 4, and he was like, I don't even know what that is. And I thought that was so funny because, yeah, it's kind of, I don't know if there's a lot of people don't. My dad had a reel-to-reel player at my grandma's house when I was a kid growing up. A lot of it was for self-recording stuff. If you remember, there was a lot of self-recording you could do on reel-to-reel. But talk about rare. I mean, I've seen hardly any of those, but that was an actual, release, another medium for release of some of those albums in the 70s. I haven't followed the timeline of reel-to-reel stuff as well, but I would imagine it probably goes back. I mean, into the 50s and 60s potentially, but certainly I know there was a following in the 60s and 70s. Some of the stuff I remember my dad having was from the 70s, but you know, that's a very, very interesting thing, is that reel-to-reel release of those albums.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the rarest as far as finding it. Will it bring the most value and dollar amount? Don't know. It's possible, but certainly the most rare and hard to find. But I
was thinking
the average user, like Led Zeppelin 4, if you could pick what that format to have it on it, most people would probably pick vinyl, I would think, because that's what it predominantly came out at when it was released.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff is there. I mean, I just think there's certain ones, like I have the Snapcase release of that. I've never seen another one.
No.
It's probably one of my most valuable items. I would, you know what I mean? It's an absolute banger. And, you know, the fact that that was released at that time in that format.
And the Snapcases are just so cool, man. Like,
yeah.
Awesome. Like, what a weird, unique design that was never used again in anything else that I can think of.
Yeah. Yeah, the Snapcase.
And what do you think the run was? That 5 years, maybe 10?
You know, from what I've seen, it looks like probably. I mean, even some of the early '60s stuff looked something like that. But yeah, mid '70s, and then most of that was phased out by. It seems to be like around 75, 6, 7, somewhere in there. Yeah. You know,
very, very short run. Another unique. Piece.
And you have the slider.
And then to have that iconic album, sorry to cut you off, but holy shit, on that unique of a thing. Did you get the reel-to-reel?
No, it's up on eBay. It's they want $4,000 for it, which seems fairly reasonable actually for what it is. Like you said, though, I mean, does somebody really want that? And or is it going to be some big value item? I have most of the different releases of Led Zeppelin 4 because it's such an iconic album and such a meaningful album to me. But and
that would be so cool to have, like, be a completist, have every version
of all the releases. Yeah, I thought about
it would probably be the only person in the world
to have those. Yeah, on every release. That's why I thought about buying that one. I mean, I have the long box, I have cassette and different releases. The LP is not like crazy hard to find, at least in a fairly early release. Probably not some first release, but yeah, that would certainly be one of the most difficult, along with the Snap cassette.
Question for you, opinion piece. So something like that, I've noticed some of the Beatles stuff, the UK releases, even if they're released on the same day, the first release as the US release, I see the UK stuff bringing a little more money. What's your thoughts on that? Is that because they're a UK band, or that was the first release over there?
Yeah, probably.
And would that be the same with Zeppelin, do you think, a UK first?
I think you'd have to go back and look at the releases. I mean, in some ways it's weird. It's like 80s bands. You know, there were a lot of 80s bands that released in Japan and Asia first, just because of the market and their popularity. So you'd have to see where the bands, obviously the bands that blossomed and grew in the UK that are British or American bands, because there's some American bands that really took off there. Speaking of which, Rodriguez died last year. Rest in peace, man. What a wild, amazing documentary that movie was. If you've never seen it, Searching for Sugar Man, a guy named Rodriguez. I saw the world premiere of that at Sundance, and it's mind-boggling because you have to watch it. I don't want to ruin it for you, but it's one of the best movies I've ever seen. But I saw that at Sundance some years ago, and it's one of the coolest stories. But like, he had a huge release of his album. He's American guy from Detroit area, and he had a huge release like in South America or South Africa, I mean. And so it never really blew up here. So there's a lot of bands like that. So I would think, yeah, the bigger album to get would be something that was released. Yes, master tapes were in UK. All of the countries received copies of masters. Yeah.
So, but but to me, that gets more into the audiophile guys that care about, the sound quality of the record, as opposed to sealed collectors and first release collectors. They're very, very different. Like those guys, the audio nerds want the master tapes because that's the best sound, man. But guys like you and I, while that's cool, I don't care so much about that. To me, the value is the iconic album, the artwork, and that it's still sealed and in good shape. That's the value. It's a display piece. It goes on a slab. I don't care.
Well, even like the early Metallica stuff, you know?
Yeah.
that was released in the UK. So it's kind of the same balance. It's not necessarily where the band is from. I think it's kind of like where they got their, bigger start from. And that, I think probably goes back to a first earlier print release idea that permeates all collectibles, which is funny to me because, for example, like I have.
That's an interesting point. Sorry. Another comment.
Also, Beatles, for example, were directly involved with the UK artwork. Capitol screwed with all that. That's interesting. Yeah, because if you notice those UK releases, the artwork is so different from the artwork from Capitol. It's very different. I mean, you just get so used to seeing the Capitol US release stuff that it's ingrained in your head. But yeah, that's a great point, certainly. But for an example of like rarity over first release type of idea, I have the I think there's a Pop 1, and then I have a VGA Pop 1 WADA, and I have a VGA graded 85 plus, probably a 96 A++ of Super Mario RPG made in Mexico. Okay, everyone knows that's a later release. There's like 50 of the made in Japan releases on the Pop Report, just for WADA, 35 or something. There's one of the Mexican release. And those Mexican boxes are way harder to keep nice than the Japanese ones. So to me, having that thing in a 96 A++, yeah, the cardboard's thinner, and a 96 A++ is like wildly rare. Yeah, it's not the first release, but like a couple times I've almost moved that piece to somebody. I mean, even the people that I talk to about it, I'm like, yeah, kind of value it the same. I certainly don't downgrade it for being a quote unquote second print because it's wildly rare. Maybe it's not going to bring a premium, which in my mind, it really should if it's that rare. But people still attach so much weight to the first release stuff, So,
yep.
But, yeah, not so much the case for Zeppelin. Probably stuff was released very similarly. But, yeah, you and I we're Beatles. I know a lot of Beatles stuff. My dad, remember when we did the pod the other time, my dad's a big Beatles and the Who guy. I'm more of a Stones guy. He comes in with all the right answers right away. That's certainly. Call him in out of the bullpen.
These fucking kids don't know what they're talking about.
That's right. He's probably over there.
Whippersnappers and they're rat and docking.
Rat and docking. Mm-hmm.
I don't care about tooth and nails, Jay.
Dude, isn't it funny when you reference something now after it's been many years, and your dad is like, it's like something that you did or listened to all the time when you were a kid. He's like, gosh, it does sound familiar. Because back then he's like, turn that off, or whatever. and then they got into it eventually 20 years later. Same
but different. My dad to this day. All right, Tom, I remember when you play that Tony Banks Pro Skater.
Tony, yeah. Your dad and my dad and about everybody. I think it's a usual theme across the board where dads just don't get any names right. Ever. No. Ever. I don't know when we'll cross over to that. I guess I kind of did last time we brought that up. But yeah, you just don't ever get the names. My dad doesn't get any names right, man.
No, it's always close, but like not quite there.
Yeah, like the new tennis player, Carlos Alcaraz. He calls him Alcatraz.
I knew you were going to say Alcatraz.
Yeah, he calls him Alcatraz. Yeah, Alcatraz. I don't even correct him at this point with any of this stuff. So, speaking of which,
no need to argue. According to Cash Glass, parents.
Yeah, no need to argue. Parents just don't understand. Good throwing there, Trash. Woo! All right, this is a mail call that I already opened because I put a video up of it. But this, to me, speaks to exactly what we were just talking about. 8-track release of Fleetwood Mac Rumors. This is the original black box, and it's minty. Look at the shine on that thing. I've been looking for this for 3 years. Finally found one. Okay.
As we move in time and culture, I think that has become a top 10 album of all time. Just as far as notoriety, popularity, it's transcended now multiple generations. Even the Gen Z kids know that shit. And they don't know anything
because of Stevie Nicks, but yeah.
Stevie.
Because of Stevie. I mean, I've always loved Stevie. Stevie and Princess Leia were my first.
What's weird? Guys our dad's age too, or maybe a little younger than our dad's age, kind of in between the generations of us and our dads. Every one of those dudes had a crush on Stevie Nicks.
Yeah.
I don't see it personally. The talent is there, my God. But as far as the looks, it's just.
It's funny because, but there's just something about her because, it's not a girl that you would have necessarily, even when you look back. But when I was a little kid, I had a little boy crush on her and Carrie Fisher. And Carrie Fisher's the same way.
You're older than me. Yep.
She's not like wildly. I mean, she looks great in that Jabba outfit, the Jabba chamber suit. But like, neither of those two are like girls that you and I would pick out now, right? But back then, I mean, maybe it was because who they were. But for me, that album means so much because we had a van in the early 80s that had an 8-track player, and we had like 2 8-tracks shoved in the side compartment thing. Maybe 3, but it was Fleetwood Mac, Rumors, and Sha Na Na. I don't know if you know them, but they were like
of course. Lead singer Bowser?
Yeah. So I would just play those over and over and over again, and this album over and over and over again. And I mean, dude, we talked about this before. I don't think I think it's solidified as such, but to real music connoisseurs, Fleetwood Mac Rumors top 5 album of all time. I mean, every song on it is good. Every song on it is a classic almost. I mean, I think there's 7 singles off of this album.
I mean, this would lead directly into the Mount Rushmore type of idea.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've discussed what are the Mount Rushmore of all time albums, and we've named some of them even today. Led Zeppelin 4 and Fleetwood Mac Rumors. I mean, certainly both of those are in the
I don't agree with 4. Not on the top 4.
I'm just saying.
Appetite, can we agree on that?
Yeah, we didn't mention that, though. Appetite, but that's going to be our personal preference, too. But I think so. I mean, I think taking our preference out of it.
Take you and me out of it. It's the #1 selling debut album of all time. They still sell out arenas and venues every single day.
Yeah.
And it's 35 years later, and people still show up and care in a world that does not give a shit about rock music
4 #1
anymore.
singles, 6 or 7 overall single releases. But
for Rumors?
No, for Appetite. But this is same.
4 #1s?
I think so. At least 3.
No, I don't think so.
At least 3.
Well, now I got to look it up. Talk about your Fleetwood Mac. I'll look it up.
Secondhand News, Dreams, Never Going Back Again, You Make Lovin' Fun, Don't Stop, Go Your Own Way, The Chain, and Gold Dust Woman. All this, dude, every time people pick up this album, they think this is Fleetwood Mac greatest hits. You know what I mean?
That's the ultimate compliment too. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So I was right. GNR only had one #1 of all and ever. Sweet Child. That album had 3 top 10 hits: Sweet Child, Paradise City, Welcome to the Jungle.
Those are the 3 I was referencing.
But if the world worked as it should, Night Train should be a #1 hit.
Yeah, and I mean Rocket Queen, Out to Get Me. I mean, there's a ton of them.
Every song on that album's great.
Except for one.
We can 5 hours on Appetite.
Yeah, but we've touched on a couple. But this is my point. That album, that's a 1977 release, the year I was born. That's another reason that album means a lot to me. But that's damn right in the smack dab in the middle of the height of popularity for 8-track.
Yep.
So
hey, speaking of which, you can teach people here. You mentioned it earlier, but so tell people, you see how it's got the red border, right?
Yeah.
First black border. Do a little education.
Yeah. Are you doing it or me?
No, I'm showing. You're telling.
Oh yeah. So the black one is the earlier release.
Mm-hmm.
The red one is the after. Reds. Yeah, and then there's also the ones you'll see that are like light blue and such. A lot of those are club releases because the club thing people think started with cassettes. It actually started with 8-tracks, even LPs, I think.
LPs. Oh, they did LPs. And another kind of telltale sign I get people that ask once in a while. Now, I have seen some Y-folds on 8-tracks, but typically that period correct, you see it's not going to show up, is it? Right here. And it's always ridgy. How is yours? Is it real ridgy on the back?
Mm-hmm.
The overlay seal? I've seen them like this one.
Well, they don't all. Yeah, some of them have it, some of them don't. Some of them are Y-folds. Some of them have an overlap. Some of them have Y-fold with no overlap. Depends.
But it's the only the overflap that I've seen that is so ridgy like that on any platform, any medium.
Yeah. This is if you look at this doesn't have. It's a flat back with Y folds on the top and bottom.
Mm-hmm.
On the sides. Actually, it's 3-sided, like a lot of the cassettes were. 3-sided Y folds.
That's another short run, that 3-side Y fold.
Yeah, I mean, you see a good amount of 80s cassettes with that. Early to mid 80s, there was a bunch of that. And you see it even on some random stuff. Like, dude, that's the other thing that's very difficult about the cassette game is that there's a ton of variances because there are a lot of different places they were produced, even at the same time, just to be able to get a number of them out there. So there's a lot of variances that you see in cassette stuff, even into the early 90s and such. So, I mean, I've seen Dr. Dre stuff, Chronic stuff with totally different seal patterns, you know, of the Y folds and things. So very interesting. All right, let me dive. Oh, this was an interesting one I already opened. Finally got my Christmas present from my parents in August. See if you know this.
Pocket? Nope.
The Analog Pocket. Have you heard of this thing, this company? Nope. So they make like retro throwback. I'm going to even open it right here live.
Oh, God. You're going to break my heart.
Oh!
Did I try to explain that to my lady the other day?
Yeah, like I sweat opening a frozen pizza.
She's like, yeah, but you have to open stuff. It's like, no, but you don't get it. Like for a sealed collector, like no matter what it is, a frozen pizza, a box of cereal, the second you open and break that, it like kills your heart for a second.
Yeah, of course. I've thought I had a Super Mario Star Topper Christmas tree thing for $30, and I was like, should I open that? Like,
I don't know. I should probably put it in the closet.
Yeah. Or now I'll just put it on the tree in the box.
As a box.
yeah.
Tie it on there.
Yeah. Look at this thing, dude.
It's got video games on it, or what do we?
So this thing is super rad for old school guys.
I hope to God it's old school, period correct, and batteries not included. Looks bigger than a Game Boy.
It's a little bit bigger than a Game Boy, but it plays Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, all that stuff. And it's got
the game's preloaded, or is there?
No, the carts go right in the back, and then there's some kind of a conversion thing to put the other ones in. But yeah, the carts go right in the back. Super Game Boy? Yeah.
Do you remember when the Super Game Boy came out?
Yeah, I have one.
You had it when it came out?
No, I have one now.
Oh, dude, I remember begging for that thing. And I was even selling, like, Dad, you got me the Game Boy. In 89. The Game Boy, sorry, the game. And now we can just play them on Super Nintendo, so you don't have to buy more games.
Right.
Didn't work. Instead, what did I get 2 years later? Tony Banks, Pro Skater.
Tony Bennett.
Oh, did you want that Tony Banks?
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. When people say a name wrong or pronounce a word weird, you ever notice they somehow, in their next speech pattern of what they're saying, the next paragraph, they say that same thing like 8 to 10. They just keep hammering it, even though it's wrong.
Yep. Tony Banks. Here's another one. Another mail call that I haven't opened at all, but I do know what it is. But this is definitely for my C-Town boys. MGK Day last week.
C-Top boys?
C-Town.
Oh, town.
Yeah,
yes.
C-Town.
Cleveland.
C-Town. The land, as the youngsters like to call it. I never liked that for some reason, but whatever.
Hawaii of the Midwest, Cleveland.
Yeah. But another big day, MGK, last weekend, he had his big performance at Maddie's Club where she works downtown. And then this happened. This was the part of that, very interesting one. And I'm glad that it looks like they packed it well enough. Some bubble wrap, not overly taped. Looks like solid. Gotta love when people like take the packaging tape and wrap it on the bubble wrap. You're like, dude, I have to be able to get to it.
I undertaped on my submission to CGC, and I'm worried. I taped like a 60-year-old.
I'm always afraid when I over tape that somebody's gonna fuck something up. Oh, dude, this is great. Wait till you see this. Now, who knows?
I'm gonna see if they've even checked that damn thing in yet.
Well, I'm sure you can buy a cart that takes an SD card with all the games on it. Yes, I believe so. But the thing looks like real. I can't wait to fire that thing up later. But wait till you see this, bro.
Oh, it's received. Good. Oh, yeah.
Last weekend was also the dedication of Bone Thugs in Harmony Way in East 99th and St. Clair, 30 blocks from the Slovenian neighborhood. Dude, when
that's
those guys
neighborhood over there?
Oh, yeah, big money. Not.
Nah.
Slovenians are, the saying for Slovenians are, we're like Jews, but without the money. We're cheap and we don't have money. So that's us. So you got a poor black neighborhood and a bunch of Slovenians living within 30 blocks of each other. Yeah, there's no money being thrown around there. Now, back in the day when my grandparents had their businesses and came over from Europe and, you know, blah, blah, blah. It was a thriving community. But yeah, people were still thrifty and cheap and whatever. I mean, it just goes with the territory. But dude, I thought this was so cool. Look at this. So it does have the drill delete. See it?
Yeah. Yep.
And why?
Promo? You're going to have to read it. It's not showing up.
It says 1996 MTV Video Music Award nominated for Best Special Effects in a Video, Best Rap Video, Best Group Video, Best Video of the Year. It also has the hype sticker, includes the bomb hit, The Crossroads.
Meet me at the Crossroads. Is the Crossroads 99th and whatever?
East 99 in St. Clair, yeah.
So that is the Crossroads.
They have it as East 1999, Eternal 1999 for this, but this was released, I think, in 95. What the hell year was this released?
So it's probably some original promo.
96.
And then they were like, oh my God, they got nominated, and they slapped that sticker on there.
They slapped the sticker on and sent it out to people to try to get hype. I just thought that was so cool. So that's like, normally you don't want the drill deletes, but I mean, this is how you're going to get this, because that's what that went out for. Not for resale, for a promo of, and they just, you know what the funny part is? So they renamed the street Bone Thugs and Harmony Way or whatever. Mm-hmm. There was this, you know, there were, I don't know, 50 black people from the neighborhood that came out, and then a couple of white boys. Like one of my buddies was there, you know, a few people from the news. They made a big deal. It was an awesome little videos everyone made. And by the next morning, the sign was stolen.
Well, yeah, of course.
Of course. Dude, that first one going to be worth a bunch of money.
They should have like pressed like 100 of those things. Just
for sure. Like, for the first 100 days. Yeah, just keep pumping them up there.
They got them working in shifts.
Yeah, we got them working in shifts.
Leads. I'm sure, yeah, that's what the mayor's saying about that sign being stolen. We got any leads on this? Or
well, we got a young, hip black mayor now, Justin Bibb, so he's probably all over it. You know,
was that street sign on Craigslist?
yeah. Yep. All right, I got one more. Got one more unboxing, and then we'll call it a day. Some interesting
we're short on time for our typical thing.
Yeah, well, I got tennis to go to.
So. Oh, there it is. So far we've gotten Cleveland, Slovenians, and tennis in the last 5
Whoever's
minutes.
playing that J-Boy drinking game
just got hammered.
Just got hammered.
This whole time they're like, I'm sober. This sucks. It's boring.
Yeah.
Acting. And then all of a sudden, oh, fuck.
Here he comes.
What's like each culture kind of has like their own liqueur. What's the Slovenian one? Like, what are you people?
Slivovitz.
Annie Slivovitz?
Slivovitz. It's a plum wine that's really strong.
Oh, yeah. A lot of poor ones drink that shit.
Yeah. Slivovitz.
It's plum wine, though? It's not like a liqueur or anything?
It's a plum wine. I mean, it's a heavy, it's probably like 20%. You know,
so it's
like a mix between a shot and a glass of wine. It's that middle.
You know a product that also is that is predominant to us, and we mentioned it on this podcast already?
No.
Night Train wine.
Oh, yeah.
Who'd have knew Axl Rose was Slovenian?
He is from Indiana.
Dude, the first time I visited here, I went to the liquor store across the street from Whiskey. I'm like, dude, I gotta go. This is where GNR used to go, and I literally I bought two things of Night Train wine, right?
Yep.
And it was so bad, and I took a little embarrassed, but a selfie in front of the whiskey, you know, taking a drink of it, and Jesus Christ, it was so gross.
Oh yeah.
But I miss that taste, and they don't sell it here anymore. Anywhere, you can't get it.
Dude, I will say this about CGC. Or Wada and CGC. I wish they would put on the box where the openings are, because they box tape it with that brown box tape. Mm-hmm. You can't tell where the openings are. Holy shit. What a fucking nightmare.
What do you mean where to cut?
Yeah. All right, here we go. God, I'm sweating my balls off.
God damn it.
Damn it!
Dude, I'm always Walter, but today you are Walter. Dude, nothing is fucked. Oh, yeah. Always love that cover. 988 plus.
I thought it had a chance at 988 plus, which would have been my first ever 8 plus 988 plus submission.
What's the pop on that at 988 plus?
There's a few of them. It's a high pop game, and there's like I think there's one 9.8 A++ and a couple 9.8 A++. But I mean, this is top of the pop or near it, right at the very top.
Is that going on the shelf?
Oh yeah, this is badass, bro.
I mean, is that on your list?
It's not on my list. No, I don't want to give the list away yet, but it's not on my list. I was more into Wolfenstein because my cousin used to send that to me on the computer. But this was always one of my favorite game covers. And I love how important that game is.
Things here.
Yeah.
Although it's subtle. I always love with the cover art there, the color palette they use.
Yeah, 100%. I actually, honestly, I might even resubmit this. I always liked the one with the old one when they didn't have it landscape. And it was like this. And it looked like he was like firing or jumping down. Mm-hmm. And then the thing was here. And that color matched that blue color perfectly right there. Because I think once a year they're going to offer the old style. So, but yeah, dude, this thing was so mint. I thought it was going to be a 9.8 A++, but I don't know where it's funny to see like, okay, does one little tiny flaw on the plastic somewhere take it out of the A++ range? Like, does it have to be absolutely flawless?
I mean, that guy probably was an A++ and he dropped his cigarette ash on it while he was playing it. Oh,
another Doom.
God, these kids.
All right, here's another one you'll like. The GOAT, the real GOAT, the one and only GOAT.
Yeah. 9 to CIB?
Yeah, 9.2 CIB, which, I mean, dude, high-grade CIBs, it's a 9.2 box, a 9.4 manual, 9.0 cart. Like, dude, not easy to find. Dude,
I have a bugaboo about that title.
Why?
I mean, it's awesome. Remember, like,
have you played it? It's really fun, dude.
Yeah, I used to rent it back in the day at the Village Video in Cambridge, Wisconsin. No, I found a minty copy like that on eBay a couple years ago. It was like $60, and I bought it right away. Guy sends it out, tracking not updated, and then I'm like, hey, bro, what's going on? He's like, oh yeah, I lost the ship. I'll ship it out. Ships it out again. This is like 2 weeks later. This time I'm following it, and it was picked up by either UPS or whoever. USPS, and I'm following it, and then it says delivered, and I never got it. Never.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. I
still have no idea what happened. And I lived in the hills. It wasn't like people were stealing packages. So and that's the only package I've ever had that said delivered and I never got.
And it's so interesting that he was such a big name that he had a game made like this. It wasn't even really about basketball, where he's literally like Superman. Speaking of Superman, Maddie and I watched Superman 2 and 3 the last couple nights, and she loved it, which is great. And I think highly unappreciated Superman 3. Love Superman 3.
Well, who doesn't like Richard Pryor?
Yeah. But no, made him into like a superhero on a video game. Mm-hmm. This one's a little salt to me because there was a really nice sealed copy that I had a chance to grab on eBay. And it was one of those where you just never know how to play it when you could tell it's some kind of a thrifter lady. And I was willing to pay more, and she ended up accepting a very low number, and it was gone. That was a while ago.
I gotta honor that.
Yeah, I have to honor that.
I sold it for
$120, even though yeah, great. I got this at a video game convention for like $15. I saw it. I was like, dude, that thing's pristine. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How long ago?
A year and a half, 2 years ago.
Man, alive.
Yeah. All right, here's the last one out of this submission. Last one for the day. It's another. I will say, the reason I sent these to Wada, because I've been sending a lot of stuff to CGC, because I'm not CIB wise, is because I don't like these turquoise stickers that match nothing. But I tried to get stuff that had green tones, and it kind of fits in a little better.
Yeah, it works.
It works enough. And then this one I think works really well.
One thing I'm going to send in, even though I like CG.
Over there?
No, someone's doing some leaf blowing outside. We all aren't homeowners, okay? Mm-hmm. Mr. HOA. Mm-hmm. Not that it's a big title, but my Fight Club on Xbox. I think that one wouldn't look good in the CG with the CGC label, but I think that time period and the graphic design would look great with what Wada does.
Yeah.
And plus, you'd have like that Xbox green, the pink of the Fight Club, and then the turquoise, or no, I guess it'd be blue because it's sealed.
This one is a perfect for the turquoise. Wait till you see this. Wait till you see this one, man. This one is so perfect.
Oh, yeah.
It has this green down here, right in there. Look at that. It's like a perfect match. 9.2 Super Mario All-Star CIB, 9.2 box, 9.0 cart, 9.0 manual. This one I put together over some time too, where I couldn't find a manual for a while. That's fun about CIB, man, is just like piecing together. And like we said, it's a numbers game. You can literally just do the math. If you're some like crazy fucking nerd mathematician genius, it's just numbers, dude. I can figure it out and I'm making 20%. Bam, bam, bam. I put this one with this one and this one with this one, and this is what it's worth. For that, if you do it that way, you know, one of the big guys that does it that I'm friends with, he's been doing it for years. He's like, there's no variables. You know, I don't submit stuff that isn't graded. I don't buy stuff that isn't graded and hope for the best, because then if it doesn't come back, you're taking out of your 20%.
No, I get that, but to me, it's more like we do all this. It's all a treasure hunt, no matter what it is, sealed, CIB, whatever. And with CIB, you get 3 times the treasure hunt.
Right.
And it's a little more encouraging because it's a lot easier to find, obviously, open stuff than sealed stuff.
Yeah.
So it keeps you going along the way.
Yep, 100%. I think that's everything. Oh yeah, they sent me. You know, this was nice. I will say this. I'll give this a shout out to them. I included 2 manuals, and I said, please use whichever one's better. WADA sometimes would be like, well, if you're not paying for it, I'm not looking at 2.
That was WADA.
I mean, back in the day. Sorry.
Oh.
I think CGC has done it for me too. That's why I thought about it. WADA, now that they've done it there the last couple times, they haven't. And CGC's done the same thing where I've put 2 things in there and been like, hey, I can't tell.
Hold on.
All right. Well, let's call it a day. His Hawaiian pizza just shown up. His Hawaiian pizza just showed up. It's quite burnt.
Whoopsie daisy.
Whoopsie daisy.
I should have had that comic in the press for like 20 minutes max, and it's been on since 5 minutes before this podcast.
It's down to, it was 12 pages. It's down to 3.
But they are crisp. They are
crispy. They're
flat as a
crispy.
pancake.
They're as crispy as a Hawaiian Maui pizza. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Some good stuff. Like I said, we're going to be transitioning over to the other podcast over the next month or 2. So thanks for tuning in, and we will see you all later. What do you think? Pretty good.
That's a very, very interesting.
I can't hear you anymore. I'll call you later. I got to run.